Kamigawa is a world that's split in two. The physical world, where human rats and ogres live, and the spirit world, where kami and myojin spirits live. Today we will unpack a set booster and unpack it slowly enough so that we learn more about the two worlds of Kamigawa and how they have changed over the years. To start, like always, with an art card. Here we see art from Tomohito. This is Invoke Despair, 1 out of 5 invoke cards for the set. It aims to show us an invocation. To invoke means to call on a deity or spirit in prayer, as a witness, or for inspiration. In this case, we see that the people of Kamigawa could call despair on themselves as well. Perfectly illustrated by the classical wave pattern formed into large fists. A boat sinks into the water as a person is grasped into the water. Remember for now that a kami is in essence a part or an aspect of a myojin. It is therefore almost always a weaker form. These grasping waves of sludge are formed by a kami, so just wait to see later in this pack what a myojin could do. This verse by Azoi shows us another important aspect of Kamigawa, the River of Spirits. Not only are their landforms amazing to look at for their natural shapes, but they also reveal to us how alive the lands of Kamigawa are. In this case we see a town in the forest, one that seems to bustle with life, without us seeing any creature. The front tree hut is opened as if the whole town is a massive, coiling snake, and that could be the truth. On Kamigawa, every aspect of life has a reflection in the spirit world. Now that the spirit gates are open for such a long time, there can be spirits in the material world that are larger and larger, allowing for whole cities to exist as living kami. Our first creature from Kamigawa is a fitting and lovely simple one. It is a warrior from Eiganyo, the center of imperialism on this plane. Kamigawa is divided into 5 mana colors of magic, and Eiganyo, as you can see, is the white aligned hotspot. This big smiling man, created by the artist Yamada Rokoku, is a samurai, and in the Neon set that means that he gives boons to warriors and samurai that fight alone. That is the honorable thing to do, of course. The Eiganyo samurai like this bonus because they are honorable and prefer order over basically anything else. Other people would say that they take power from the weak, but that is just because the weak are not equal enough in the eyes of the imperialists. Now just follow the lead of this exemplar and you will get handy combat bonuses whenever you fight all alone. Nowadays in Magic, things are not always as divided in colors as they used to be. This Nezumi Blade Blaster seems like a bandit, but oh, who am I kidding? They are probably part of the Black Aligned Reckoners crew. A group of people that fight with unending loyalty to their crew. Not because they like each other, but because they have to swear an oath that kills you when you do not end up avenging your fallen brothers and sisters. Kemono Michi made this rat a little cuter by having him carry a bowl of pink soup and giving him butterflies around his swing. Meanwhile, the creature itself wants you to have artifacts and enchantments. This is significant as right now there is a big debate about how much sciencey artifacts and how much sushi spirit stuff the people of Kamigawa should use. And this Nezumi rat has found his balance. If you find that balance, the rat will have menace and death touch, meaning that your opponent will have to block your samurai with 2 creatures, who will almost certainly be removed. Watch out for this horned one. Watch out for this horned one too. Ogres in Kamigawa used to be solely aggressive. They aligned themselves with demons in order to get more powerful, and some were so scary that no one dared to enter their territory. They can also be simple, like we read in this flavor. Tuma never met a door he didn't hate. Tuma, in my eyes, is like a cat with how angry he becomes with closed doors. Xavier Ribeiro did a great job at making me feel like my cat is knocking through my door. If you don't know, You Are Already Dead or is a reference to an old anime that no one actually ever watched. Just kidding, many people watched it, but more people know about the meme.
Yeah, they had us the first half, I'm not gonna lie.
We get this piece of pop culture in this art, and it does basically what it says. You hit a creature, slash past it, and then a moment later the creature realizes it is dead. Then you draw a card. Don't bother watching the anime either. I would rather have you watch Samurai Jack's Jack and the Ultra Robots episode, and that is not a joke. From immeasurable resentment to something amazing. Clawing Torment is an enchantment for 1 black that weakens the creature, makes it a coward, and then also beats your opponent up for having the thing. This feels like a massive downside for such a creature, and the Torment seems heavy to say the least. What I find most interesting is that this card's art was released together with the knowledge that this is a depiction of a woman possessed by the kami of treachery, Azamaki, a spirit that used to be a flip card. It is cool to see very small callbacks like that. Even though they seem insignificant, we also know now why bestowing this kami onto someone is so painful. The Blade Blesser returns, with art from Ilse Gort this time. We see a more realistic style, which is not necessarily better of course, where our red for today sits with his bow and on his sword. I think it is lovely to see the same common creature in 2 different stances, and noting that he uses the bow in different ways in order to fight well. I imagine that the bow is infused with magic and poison. Magic being what gives him menace, like with the stance we saw before, and that the death touch is the poison. Here we see the Nezumi in a state where only the weapon is here, and the kami has not yet possessed his sword. So we are missing the menacing stance from before, and that is real lore for such a small guy. We now also see his flavor. It's not one or the other. Kami or technology, both offer power. I will not limit myself. Showing us that this Nezumi truly stands between the Imperials and Futurists, who we have yet to see, with his philosophy. What an amazing Gru card, showing us that the Gru can be wild in different ways than smashing stuff. They can also be mischievous and use paths that might not have been built for the monkey people of Gru. These monkeys come and take one of the limited 4 uses of these paths, and the people around can do nothing but look at those dear little monkeys. This badge enchantment enters with 4+1 counters. You can have one of your creatures enter such a path each turn, and even with the time it takes for their path, they will still get haste for your trouble. Note that you can still increase the amount of counters on this enchantment if you find a way. Otherwise you can play this to look at a monkey that's having a bath, also worth. We see another beautiful insight into the nature of the kami. They like to offer gifts to whomever they deem suited. Still, we learn from the flavor here. It is said that one must modestly refuse a gift 3 times before accepting it to show humility before the kami. Well, in this case you have no choice, because whenever you cast an enchantment as a form of offering, this spirit will give out a +1 counter. Just imagine the spirit wanting to give all of your creatures 4 counters and you only accepting 1 of them every time. You could have been so much stronger, but you refuse to be as cocky. The people of Kamigawa have been at war for a long time. A war with themselves essentially, as they were fighting their spirit reflections, and more than that even. This is why they did not really win as much as they survived, and then apparently thrived after this war. For here we learn there came an era of enlightenment, where the people gained knowledge by scrying 2, restored the lands and their wounds by gaining 2 life, and then when the story is done, you receive the hand of enlightenment. which is a 2/2 monk with first strike, but this era of enlightenment cannot have been right after the Kami War, because we know that that was the honest reign of Michigo. Let's read the flavor first. We have endured lifetimes of war and carved our way to peace by blade and conquest. Now, united at last under Kyodai's guidance, we lay down our weapons and open our minds. This is Aoya, general of the first emperor speaking, which is interesting because the general of the emperor from the Kami War was Munetsugu Takeno, notably a different person. So what time are we talking about here? Well, there was a war after the Kami War, a war between the peoples of Kamigawa. As the strong hand of the emperor had fallen away, the people needed the guidance of Kyodai. The spirit dragon would then continue to choose the emperors for their virtues instead of for their blood. That is how much we can get out of this card. Now we continue with the actual Kami War, and that is a very long story, for which I will need a whole deep dive. But let's look at what we can gather from the card together with what we already know. So the Kami War was started by Emperor Konda and the moonfolk of Kamigawa. They did this by stealing an aspect of the Myojin of the Rift, Okagachi, meaning something like big snaky thing. This is where the exiling came from, which started the war. The Kami then started entering the material world, having the emperor retreat his warriors and people in order to try to protect them, return a creature to your hand, but still having losses in the process, discarding a card. Then came the real destruction. Whenever a Kami enters the spirit world, they lose a piece of their essence which stays in the spirit world. For a colossal Kami, like the primordial Okagachi, this meant a lot of pain which he had felt from the moment where the emperor stole a part of him. The huge spirit now came to reclaim what was his. This 6/6 with trample lets your opponent return something to you every time this Kami attacks. Note that Okagachi is a Myojin, but his manifestation has to be a Kami. This Kami will essentially attack until the emperor returns what has been stolen, which he will stubbornly not do until he is dead. Again, I must take a lot more time for the whole story, so I will put that on my backlog. We almost finish with another Nezumi. After such a huge spirit, this might seem strange, but the Mukotai are a group of reckoners, which is very significant. These ones specialize in stealth, and they have attacked small villages before. This is interesting as the reckoners used to be a smaller organization, with a few notable people, and now they have grown into a massive organization, which is awesome to see. Raymond Swanland also made a beautiful piece for how dynamic it feels. These action poses are great for ninjutsu creatures that are supposed to enter the battlefield and leave it a lot. Our real finisher is one of the Kami, this time an angry one with menace. This must be a Kami of an irrelevant strival because the Myojin of anger was a whole 7/4, that seems a lot more menacing. With that last token, I want to thank you for watching, and I hope to have taught you something about Kamigawa in a very chill way. If there is anything I can improve on in your eyes to make my videos more pleasing, please tell me.